Welcome to this week's episode on the podcast. We're going to be talking about the new earth and what that means, what it looks like, what we're currently experiencing, because there's been a lot percolating in my mind. I've been consuming so much around always astrology and spirituality, the outer planets, and also a lot about femininity and what that means and how we can reclaim them. And this isn't so much man, woman. This isn't like gender. This is the feminine energetically and what that means. Because I think for a long time, we've really been swinging to the hyper masculine. And we're trying to sort of reintegrate the feminine and what that looks like and what that means for us. And I feel like there is this underlying rage, I want to say, with the feminine of being suppressed for so long. And I feel it in my own life, of times when I've played the good girl, when I've not spoken my truth because I didn't want to be rejected, or I'm just gonna turn this light down. It's slightly distracting me if you're watching on YouTube. Okay. Yeah, for the fear of like rejection. And there's so much to it when we look back through like Venusian archetypes. You have Venus, Aphrodite, you have Inanna, Ishtar. I mean, this goes back from the beginning of time, right? Even back through Eve, Lilith. I feel like Eve and Lilith are actually really great examples of the duality of the feminine. So, if you're not familiar with Lilith, she was actually Adam's first wife, but she wasn't necessarily compliant or submissive. We'll say that. She wasn't submissive in the way that the stories say that Eve was sort of submissive. And of course, there's so much more to it. Eve ate the apple and condemned man and all these things. But Lilith was like, I will not submit. I am my own being. Mythologically, she was created equal to Adam. They were both created, whereas Eve was created from the rib of Adam. But when we look back at these archetypes of mythologically the feminine, the divine feminine, there is this duality where Venus, Aphrodite, Inanna, Ishtar, and there's another one whose name I cannot pronounce. So I'm not going to try. But anyway, they all have this duality of they sort of have this journey through the underworld. If you're not familiar with the story of Inanna, and I'm not an expert in it, but I did read a book and I've read a few things around it. She was the goddess of love and war. And so, kind of what I was getting through to all of this is that these archetypes are beauty, fertility, love, and war. And so she was the goddess of love and war. And her sister was the goddess of the underworld. And so she went through this journey of the underworld to get to her sister. And every layer of the underworld, she had to release a piece of clothing, an item of her possession, until she showed up in front of her sister completely bare and naked. And her sister, who was, depending on the story you read in the story Inanna, the book, which I don't believe is behind me, it's somewhere over there. Anyway, in the story, the sister was almost, from being in the underworld for so long, was sort of delusional a little bit and thought that Inanna was coming to get her. So she killed her, hooked her, hung her up on a hook, and she was basically dead for, some stories say, 3 days. I feel like in the book, Inanna, it wasn't completely clear how many days she was there for. Anyway, but she was then revived and brought back up a completely changed person, this transformation, right? This transformation that occurred. And so all of these sort of have this story, this theme of not just love and beauty and fertility, but also of war, this archetype of war. And I think that what's happened, in a roundabout way, getting back to that now, is that we've suppressed the war piece of the feminine so much. And when we think back to the witch trials, right? When 50, 60,000, however many witches were burned at the stake, there was this piece that was like, if we are ourselves, if we are in our practice, if we have ritual around the feminine, then we will be burnt at the stake. And so we know that genetically, yeah, we carry trauma in ourselves. And so this was, I think the witch trials were about the 1600s. So that's probably about 7 generations past. You figure probably a generation is, 80 to 100 years, give or take. So that's still encoded in our genetics and our DNA, right? This fear of rejection, this suppression of the feminine. And there are so many historical cultures that actually worshipped the feminine, and then it kind of switched, right? So we're sort of in this era of almost reclaiming this feminine. And with that is this need to really reclaim and reconnect with ourselves. So much so, because our power comes from connecting with ourselves. Human design is the science of differentiation. And it knows that we live in a Maya, we live in a matrix. And it's interesting. I've really been thinking about this over the last few days, where on the one hand, this awareness of this 3D that we live in, the programming that we live in, the matrix that we live in, and also knowing that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Times are changing, things are changing. It's like, I know that none of it matters. And also, I'm still living in this 3D. And so it's this balance of both of them, of rewiring subconscious programming beliefs. And then I'll have moments of complete clarity where I'm like, oh my gosh, this truly, like, none of this matters. Literally none of this matters. And so it is this call to reconnect back with ourselves. I've been doing these 30-minute meditations at night of just silent, well, not silence. I've been listening to binaural beats and witnessing my mind for probably a good 20 minutes of the 30. And then I can kind of like drop in the last little bit. But it's really been helping me reconnect with myself, my subconscious, noticing what comes up when my mind starts to wander or when my subconscious comes up. Those like Pluto themes, like sometimes they're really dark, like the thoughts, that kind of, or the visuals, I guess. It's sort of like when you start dipping into a dream, right? That place, that dance between waking and dream world, and noticing what comes up, what comes up from your subconscious in those moments. And so my work is to reprogram myself enough that in those moments, what's coming up is different than what's currently coming up. I've really been using sound healing as part of my practice, whether I'm walking, whether I'm falling asleep, whether I'm meditating. I did it a couple of times when I was working out, because I truly believe that we're in this space. Dolores Cannon was talking. I saw a reel where she was talking about it. And so many other spiritual teachers have spoken about this too. But it's like the new earth is here. The new earth is here. It's nothing external to ourselves. It's happening within us. Like, I think that sometimes we're waiting for something external to happen, and we can look around the world and we can look at all the dramas that are being played out. And yes, that's part of it, but it's in here, it's inside yourself, where you're choosing your beliefs, your values, your path, how you're going to show up. That's the new earth, right? And so it's already happening. It's already here. Again, and it's an internal thing. We're choosing which timeline. Dolores Cannon described it where it's like Earth is breaking into two, right? The new Earth and the old Earth. It's nothing dramatic. It's nothing, anything. We're just going to be choosing which timeline we're going on. We're choosing which Earth, which path we're going on. And I believe that relationships, people that are choosing a different path than you are going to fall out of your life. And it doesn't have to be in any dramatic way. They're just going to disappear. They're going to choose their own timeline, and you're going to choose your own timeline. And so I think like right now is such an important time to be coming inside, to be doing that work, to be connecting with yourself, to be aligning with it. Like, I know my visual. I know where I'm going. And even before this, I wanted to come and like set an intention before I started the podcast and in life, right? Like we get so taken away by life and I forgot. But part of my intention every morning when I wake up too is just to be in alignment, right? To be my most authentic version of self. And sometimes I look around, and I was talking to a friend yesterday and she's doing a coaching program, and she was saying that often the energy we're bringing to what we're creating, so whether it's a podcast, whether it's social media content, whether it's a blog, whether it's a live, whatever it is, the energy that we're subconsciously bringing to it is what we're receiving back. So if you're wounding, I guess, or your subconscious belief or conscious belief is like, nobody's listening to me. Well, every time you create a piece of content, that's the energy you're bringing to it. You're creating your content with the thought that nobody's listening to me. So that's what you're infusing into that piece of content. And I was like, well, that's so true. There's so many times, especially over the past year, when so much has fallen away, where I've literally said, I'm like, I sometimes feel like I'm talking into an empty room. But with that being my subconscious belief, like if I'm thinking that, then when I create a podcast, in my mind, if I'm thinking, hey, I'm talking to an empty room, that's what's going to happen. And so I've been really working with frequency. I've really been working with sound. I've really been working with intention of just being, aligning myself to my most aligned audience, my most aligned clients, my most aligned career path, like all the things. And just knowing that, I get to choose. I get to choose. And it's a constant practice, because sometimes it's so overwhelming to think. It's like Pluto. So I've really been really deeply diving into the outer planets, and Pluto stores, just like water energy, elementally, water stores trauma, water stores memory. Pluto really deeply holds this from past lives, from current lives, from all of those things, right? Pluto is our subconscious stored memory, and therefore our unconscious reactions to things. And so I think about that, even when you're just thinking about, if you don't believe in past lives, just thinking about this one life, that 0 to 7 year age range, the subconscious narratives we take on, even from like, I think, when I was a baby, as so many listening, and I think this is still something, maybe we've moved away from it. Maybe we're sort of battling it. It's something when I was raising, I mean, my kids are still teens, early teens, preteens, but when my daughter was young, it was still a thing where it was like, let them cry it out. And there's so much science coming out now about the importance of closeness, connection, skin to skin contact, especially in that first year. And so well-intentioned parents, my parents, right, would make me cry it out. And I've done, self-hypnosis. I've gone through meditations. I've done work with therapists and things like that. And something that has come up for me is that, there was, my grandmother used to always tell me, and my parents would, talk about it too. When I was a baby, they said I cried so much, and they were trying the cry it out method. They would put me in my room. My grandmother would be like, you would cry for hours. My mom said that they eventually called a radio, radio station, whatever it was, for like baby advice, to like ask how to make me cry, how to make me stop crying, and how to make me go to sleep. And they were like, hold her like a football. And so I don't know when I eventually stopped, but something that came up during some of these past life, or not past life, some like these self-hypnosis things for me, is this visual of like me being a baby and just being terrified in the dark in my room. And we know that like infants and babies and children are still so attached to the unknown, to the other world. So whether I was seeing things, whether I was sensing things, I don't know. I don't specifically remember, but I know I remember the feeling of being terrified. I slept with the blankets over my head with just like my nose sticking out, probably until I was like 12. I was terrified of going to bed in the dark. Like I would keep the lights on. I would keep the bathroom lights on. I had to have a night light. I slept with a blanket over my head. Like I was terrified. And sometimes you don't like think about the trauma of that to a child. And even with my daughter, I tried to do the sleep it out cry it out, sleep it out. I tried to do the cry it out for a little while and I couldn't bear it. My heart like could not bear it. So I would go in and I'd rock her to sleep. And it's just, I think it's almost like as mothers, I think we intuitively know. Like when I would listen to my daughter cry, I was just like, my heart would like break. I'm like, I can't, like she wants me. I can't like leave her. And I think of the importance of that skin to skin. And this is not what this conversation was going to be about. But I say all that to say that I think that we've moved so far away from our intuitive knowing. We've outsourced so much to science. We've outsourced so much to logic, where it's like, oh, if you just let them cry it out, they'll sleep through the night sooner. And then, yeah, like I said, like a lot of my anxieties and traumas, we'll say, because it seems silly to be like, oh, because I cried it out as a baby that created trauma, but it did, right? Like babies and infants are like so different. And there's a quote I wanted to read. I think this is the one. No, it's not the quote. Anyway, there was a quote. Okay, here it is. It's right here. Okay, so I'm reading the book The Soul Speaks, and one quote that I wanted to share that kind of has to do with this like stored memory and trauma and like how we need to be connecting more deeply with ourselves so that we can do things differently. He says, the author, Mark Jones, says, though we have successfully exiled many of the limiting superstitions of our past, we have also let go of too much of our core philosophical and spiritual heritage. The modern tendency towards meaninglessness, depression, and anxiety disorders results, at least in part, from the loss of this depth. Astrology can play its part in recovering it. So biologically, by nature, we want depth. We need a belief of some sort. I was listening to like multiple podcast episodes where these very logical, left brain, not very spiritual, not necessarily religious men were talking about how they go to church. They go to church for the connection. They pray, but they don't pray in a religious sort of spiritual sort of sense. They pray out of like a mindset or just whatever it is, but it helped them. And so I think that as we're connecting back with ourselves, as we're connecting to this new earth, there is a need for some sort of spiritual context, some sort of spiritual connection. And I think that Neptune, just having moved through Pisces, is really bringing us a little bit back to divinity, right? To divine connection, understanding that we're all connected, spirituality. I think there's a drive back to Christianity even. And I think it's a really important part of life, right? Like we need to have meaning. This is why I think astrology is so huge. Astrology helps us remember our purpose. Astrology is like a map to our soul. It's a map to what we're here to do, to this incarnation. And again, when we've moved so far away from the superstitiousness, from, right, like, what does it say? Philosophical, spiritual heritage. When we move so far away from that, then we're left with like, what is our purpose? What is my purpose here? Right? It can't just be to grind at work for 50 years and then, that's it. And then I retire and I'm struggling financially, like whatever. So we're really like being called back to a place where we have a belief in something. I was also listening to something about, so this is every time something comes in through completely random sources, multiple times over, I know it's something to look at or it's something that I'm thinking about and that's kind of like answering a question for me. I am not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. This is not subscriptive. Subscriptive, is that the right word? In any way, prescriptive. But there was 2 or 3 different, I was listening to a podcast, I saw a post, and then I think I read an article, just completely 3 different sources that were talking about Ozempic. I don't know. I mean, like obviously I know what it is, but like I've never like looked into it. I've never like seriously considered taking it by any means or anything. And this conversation is going to go deeper than that. But it was talking about how it basically, in essence, turns off your, and forgive me if you know the science behind it and I get this wrong, I apologize, but the concept of it, it turns off your dopamine receptors in a sense where, when it comes to like food or addictions, we're getting dopamine hits from it, right? We're getting dopamine hits from the sugar. We're getting dopamine hits from the alcohol, from the smoking, like whatever it is. And so it kind of turns those off so that we're not craving them in the same way, right? But the problem is it turns it off completely. So it's like we're disconnected from our body because we're not gaining any pleasures from food, from alcohol, from sex, from connection. They were saying that there's a lot of people who started Ozempic and then left marriages because they just had no feeling for their partner anymore. And it's just fascinating. I'm not even going to get into conspiracy theories or anything, but there's so much. This is very Neptune, right? Okay, so Neptune in astrology rules things that like alter our consciousness a little bit, things that confuse us. So even like Advil, it's ruled by Neptune because we take a pill, it masks the pain in our body, but the pain's not gone. I mean, the pain is gone, but the issue is not gone. So it's making it foggy. It's detaching us from that sense of pain that is actually guiding us towards what's going on in our body. So this could be considered a Neptunian drug because it's turning off this pleasure sensor. So it's kind of confusing the body to what it naturally knows or what it's pulled towards. And so we have all of these, and I believe everything has a role, but we've become so heavily reliant on things that are masking the issues. So when I was studying holistic health, I am a certified health practitioner, health coach, integrative health coach. And one thing they always talked about was that, Western medicine is beautiful in its Western medicine is beautiful in the sense that it is life-saving. So if something is wrong, if you get into a car accident, if you need surgery or anything to like save your life, Western medicine is it. We've got it covered. But what Western medicine fails is that it often masks the root issue. And so it's like if you sit on a nail, what are you going to do? Are you going to stand up and just throw a band-aid over the nail and just keep walking through your life and pretend that it's not there? You're going to just take Advil because it hurts because the nail is still there? No, you're going to take the nail out, clean it, bandage it, whatever. You're getting to the root cause. And so what's happening so much now is that we're not getting to the root cause. We're just throwing a band-aid over a rusty nail that we sat on. And so it's created this mass like disconnection from our body. And even when you think about depression, anxiety, we're taking more medication. We're living in boxes. We're working in boxes. Like I was listening to my brother talk the other day and his girlfriend, and they were talking about how, in their office, they don't have windows. And so it's like you're spending a majority of your week inside with no natural light, artificial lights, in front of a computer screen, in front of a telephone. Like, if we're not actively seeking to incorporate really good foods, getting outside, maybe they could bring a little red light thing. Maybe that'll be a good Christmas present. It's getting like a little red light thing to like help them, or blue blocking glasses. That actually would be phenomenal. But if we're not like doing things to like help ourselves, we're just getting more and more disconnected, which makes sense why we are just a culture of like more anxious people, more depressed people. I was listening to another podcast, and statistically, right now, single people are having less sex than ever, which is crazy to me. But even like tie it into meds, like SSRIs are now they're showing that for women, they take away the pleasure sensors. They take like they're actually there's like a numbing effect where they can't feel pleasure. Like after I can't remember what there's a term that they used for it. Like after they get off SSRIs, your libido is just like lower on SSRIs. And so it's like we're kind of in this like hamster wheel of like, how do we get out of this, right? Birth control pills, although incredible at the time for, femininity and kind of like, I control my body. And also, I think that we're not educated as women on our cycle. Like knowing that you can only get pregnant for like a week out of the month, right? Around ovulation. I didn't know that until I was in my 30s. The side effects of birth control. You're actually, we're actually, our picker is like almost broken on birth control. When I thought about it, I was like, wow, because I was on birth control from 16 years old until, I mean, I had my kids. So there was a couple, let's say 3 years there that I was off birth control, 3 or 4 years, maybe total that I was off birth control. And then I had an IUD for probably, yeah, I had my daughter at 24. I got the IUD out, I think at 20, maybe 27. So it was 3, and then I got it out, and then I got it back in after my son. And then, so anyway, probably, I would say probably a good, like maybe 8 to 10 years, I had an IUD. And yeah, I was thinking about it, like, especially now that I've been, diving more into the feminine and a woman's body and connecting with Venus and my cycle and the moon. Like, I spent let's say 8 years not ovulating and not menstruating. Like, that's a full moon and new moon energy if you want to equate it to the moon. Can you imagine if we just didn't have a full and new moon? Like, so disconnected with a huge part of who I am as a woman and what that means, right? With a cycle. And yeah, it was just like, I don't know. I just thought about it. I was like, wow, we're so disconnected from our bodies in so many different ways right now. And so it's like, how can we come back to ourselves? How can we connect back to ourselves? My daughter's on SSRIs, and it's a conversation she and I have been having recently of, she's almost 16. This is a time when they're supposed to be curious and horny. And, not that I'm condoning that kind of stuff, but it's a natural part of life. It's a natural part of adolescence, right? Like, it's a natural part of being in a body, in a human body, is having those urges and having those curiosities. And she's expressed a little bit of the frustration of not feeling those certain things. And so we've kind of been having the conversation about, do we get off the SSRIs? Do we start weaning off of them? What are other ways we can support ourselves? How can we regulate? How can we, so that we can come back into a healthy body? Because kids are getting on these earlier and earlier and earlier. And don't get me wrong, like, they're beautiful. The availability of it is beautiful for people who truly, truly need it. And, when I was going back and forth with, do I start my daughter on these things, especially at 14 at the time, it's like being stuck between a rock and a hard place where I resisted it for a long time. But then I wanted her to understand what feeling good feels like. I wanted her to understand what a baseline could feel like. It doesn't have to feel so dramatic. And I don't know. It's like, when I look at her chart, it's very intense. When I look at my chart, it's very intense. Like, I've had really intense emotional experiences my entire life, and I was never on any sort of antidepressant, like nothing like that. And so yeah, I don't know what, I mean, I kind of do as a health coach, let's say. I do believe the quality of our food impacts how we're experiencing our connection with our body. There's just like, there's so much to it. But again, coming back to this conversation of the new earth, we're really being asked to choose which direction are we going in? What are we connecting with? How are we nurturing our body? How are we coming back into our body? And I know the frustration with food, it's like, it's not what it once was. And there's a lot of lack of education around it. And so it's just like doing the best that we can with what we have and what we know. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's exciting also to be here at this time. Like, your soul came here for this time to be doing this work in this body. And so I think the conversation around that is really important. And doing the work, like I think I created a reel or something, but I was like, nervous system regulation right now is non-negotiable. We have to be coming into our body. We have to be doing that work. Whether you want to be using sound healing, whether you want to be getting outside, like whatever it is, like we need it. We need to be coming back into our body. I also saw this quote and I just like absolutely loved it. By my handwriting sometimes is terrible. Veronica Goodchild. She said, perhaps we're in this world to search for love, find it and lose it again and again. With each love, we are born anew. And with each love that ends, I can't read my handwriting sometimes. Collect. Okay, restart. Perhaps we're in this world to search for love, find it and lose it again and again. With each love, we are born anew, and with each love that ends, we collect a new wound. I am covered with proud scars. And I think that even, thinking about like having like less sex, I think a lot of us are avoiding the wound of love. We're avoiding vulnerability. And Brene Brown describes courage as the ability to be vulnerable. And I even notice in my own life, right? Like even doing this work often that, I'm single. I've been single for a while. And I think that for whatever reason, that's been my journey. But over the last few months, I'm not actively dating. I'm not really even interested in it. And it's when I really think about it, it is kind of that fear of the pain that comes with having feelings or being disappointed again, or whatever the narrative is, right, that I've attached to. And then I have one more quote for you that kind of goes along with this, that reminds me of like, I'm such a hopeless romantic though. Like I love love. I love to feel it. I love to experience it, the pain and everything that's involved in it. But it says, it's also from this book, The Soul Speaks. The Soul Speaks. You're here to experience life. Unity is experienced through diversity rather than conformity or the delusion of there being just one way. And it's just a reminder that, again, as we navigate the new earth, there's not just one way. And 2027 in human design, we're moving into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, away from the cross of planning. The cross of planning was more sort of tribal energy. The cross of the sleeping phoenix is individuality, right? We're coming into our own, we're finding ourselves. Pluto in Aquarius speaks to that individuality, that uniqueness, that freedom of being yourself. Uranus moving into Gemini. Again, freedom, expansion, rebellion, revolution. We are coming into ourselves. We have to come into our body. We have to trust ourselves. We have to connect with ourselves. I've noticed over the last, actually, I'll say few months, but really like over the last week, my intuition is on point. It's crazy. I was like, woke up the other day and I was like, there was two people in my mind. I was like, I know I'm going to see them today. I hadn't seen them in so long. Saw both of them that day. Like there's just little things where I'm like, okay, I'm going to listen to that. There was, there's just like little noticing my body and noticing what it says, like has been on point. And it's allowed me to say the things that I want to say in confidence of knowing that like I'm not wrong. It's allowed me to just completely be honest, to take responsibility and again, be honest in that sense. So it's been really empowering to like come back to that sense of self. It's given me more confidence in who I am. It's just made me feel, more connected, not just with myself, but with God, source, consciousness, universe, whatever terminology you want to use. And just like really, really leaning into the astrology right now and allowing myself to be guided by the astrology and also know that like I have free will and free choice within that, right? The more awake we become, the more aware we become, the more free will we have because we're not just operating on autopilot. And so it's just a really cool place to be. I wrote a note in my little notes here that my daughter and I went to see Ready or Not 2 over the weekend. I don't know if you've heard about this movie. So I hadn't heard of it. She just loves horror movies. And so anytime my son's off doing something and we like go see a movie, I'm like, all right, it's not my favorite genre, but she loves it. And spending time with her is more important than what we're watching. But this movie was actually so interesting. It was like a horror comedy. But the premise of this movie, and again, I hadn't seen the first one. So we came home and we watched the first one. We both liked the second one better. Maybe because we watched it first, I don't know. But it is about these elite six families who rule the world, essentially, and their satanic traditions. And it was just, yeah, so it was so interesting because I think oftentimes Hollywood uses dramatized reality as entertainment. And so many of us just think it's entertainment and we're like, haha, whatever. But I always believe there's like rooted truth in it. And so I noticed like two things as I was watching that, like the probably the truth of like what was actually in that. And also it was kind of like demonizing wealth and the belief. It was kind of reaffirming that belief of like, I have to sell my soul for wealth and power. And it's like we get that message from so many places. It's always like, well, you have to be greedy if you want this, or like you look at people with a lot of money or with a lot of power, and they tend to be kind of like on that side of things. And I think that's obviously the narrative that we're supposed to believe. And so it's like really, it got me thinking about rewiring these narratives that are so ingrained in us. And so it's a big ask, I guess, a big task to like move through those things, but do it, right? Like there's no better time than the now. But yeah, it's just kind of like a funny aside, I guess, that we went and watched that movie and I was like, wow, this feels so reflective of the current reality. And not to ruin, okay, so if you plan on seeing the movie, skip over the next like 30 seconds to a minute. But at the end of the movie, long story short, they're trying to get her for this ritual to like maintain their power and their wealth. And she makes a deal to like marry one of them. He gets to keep his power. She gets to stay alive because the whole deal was they were supposed to kill her. And so at the end of it, she ends up sacrificing him and gets his ring. So now she, who's like a commoner, I guess you would say, just like your normal person, whatever, she has all the power in the world. She has this ring. She basically runs the world. And so at the end of it, she threw the ring in. Everybody went down with it. And she was like, it was kind of this battle between like, I don't want to say good and evil, but kind of, right? Like she had to go through some really dark stuff to get to this point. But she retained her light, she retained her humanity, and she was like, I'm not going to sell my soul just to have like to rule the world, sort of. So it's just kind of this battle, and it kind of was reflective of like what we're kind of going through now with this, like, the new earth, the old earth. It's like war, but then also, higher frequencies, and it's like, which path are you going to take? And so, yeah, it was just like really interesting. But anyway, all of that like is just kind of what has been on my mind, I guess, over the last little bit. But I will leave you with this. Both timelines are available for us. Multiple timelines are available for us, right? There's so many different timelines. And I believe there's a version of us that is on every single timeline. Which one are you going to choose really is essentially what it is. Like I said, nervous system regulation is non-negotiable right now. Doing something that brings you into your body, connecting you with your body. Holistic Human Design Academy. I'm launching. The next live round is going to start May 1st. Doors open April 9th. The price is going to be $555 for the first week, and then it's increasing. And this is going to be the last round that is going to be this price. So definitely get in. I am sort of revamping a little bit, and this is going to be more aligned with the times. So there's still going to be your foundational information, your foundational learning on human design and astrology. So if you are a beginner, it's great for that. It's also great if you're in intermediate, and if you're a little bit more advanced, because we're going into more things than just human design and astrology. But I'm incorporating more body, more somatic practices, more transit work, how to work with the transits, outer planets, how we can really lean into this energy and understand it and really deeply come into our chart. So it's going to be so good. It's really going to be body focused, because I think that's so important right now. Coming into your body, trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, so that we can choose this, higher timeline. We're going to be beginning to reprogram our subconscious, all of the things. So it's going to be really, really phenomenal. I'm really excited. This is the 3-month container. We have calls just about every week. We have 2 sort of like gap weeks for integration and Q&A calls. But it's going to be really good. Like I said, it's going to be updated, refreshed, and really heavily focused on kind of like what this conversation was today, like body focused, and adding in the transits and things like that. So yeah, actually it is going to be live and available to sign up for the day that this episode comes out. So if you're listening to this and you feel called to join us inside the Holistic Human Design Academy, my throat is drying out, which tells me it's time to to wrap it up. But the link is going to be down below. Again, we start May 1st. So join us. It's going to be so good. I'm calling in 10 aligned souls to join me on this journey for the next 3 months. So click the link, join. Again, it's going to be $555 for the first week, and then the price is going up. And this is the last live round that is going to be at this price. It will be going up next round. So thank you so much for listening. Share this episode with a friend if it resonates. Rate, review, subscribe. Spotify, all you have to do is hit those 5 stars. If you share on social media, tag me, DM me, let me know what you think. You can find me on all of the socials at Rochelle.Christiane. It's ROCHELLE.CHRISTIANE. I would love to know what you think. I would love to open this conversation. This is just my perspective. I by no means think that this is like the one way, right, that we should all be thinking about it. This is just, again, the way I'm thinking about it and what's been on my heart and my mind. I will talk to you soon, and I hope that you have a beautiful week.